Good evening to you, Reverend Father Amal Raj, the Director of St. Peter's Center for Canon Law Studies. And good evening to you, all the professors, if there are any. Good evening to you, my dear students, who have an occasion to listen to me online. I'm very happy to be here with you this evening. I would like that this session is more interactive. As and when you feel free, you can always ask questions. Maybe in online it's not that possible, but towards the end, I will always give you time to interact with me, and I will give the necessary clarifications according to my expertise and knowledge. Okay. Having said that, I always begin any canon law class with the famous Latin saying, ubi societas ibi jus. Wherever there is society, there is law. Society consists of number of individuals who have rights and obligations. The purpose of law, I believe, is to protect the rights and is to facilitate the fulfillment of the obligations. Law serves this primary purpose: protection of rights and the fulfillment of obligations. Sometimes people say, Christ said that we should only love, and St. Paul was against all kinds of laws. Such persons must go through the promulgating document, the Apostolic Constitution, Sacrae Disciplinae Leges. There is no contradiction between the Word of God and the canon law. There is no contradiction at all. Christ said, I came to fulfill the law, not to abolish it. In fact, most of the laws are born out of the life and experience of the people of God, just as many laws in the Bible. And the Holy Father said that indeed canon law is absolutely necessary for the church. I read from Sacrae Disciplinae Leges. When we really go through the principles explained there, then we understand the value of the law. In the canon law book, Roman number 15, we read like this, and in fact, the code of canon law is absolutely necessary for the church. Why? Because church is established in the form of a social and visible unit. Wherever there is society, there is law. So church is a society. Some of the purposes are here outlined. Hierarchical and organic structure may be visible. For that we need laws. The functions divinely entrusted to it, particularly of sacred power and of the administration of sacraments. For that we need laws. We have the Tria Munera, teaching, sanctifying and governing functions, and they have to be exercised in a regulated manner, in an orderly manner. So we need laws. And then administration of sacraments, for that we need laws. And then the mutual relationship of Christ's faithful are reconciled in justice based on charity with the help of laws. Mutual relationship of Christ's faithful. Even in a religious congregation, people should know how the mutual relationship can be fostered. So without laws, they cannot be affected. And then rights of each safeguarded and defined. And then finally common initiatives which are undertaken so that the Christian life may be ever more perfectly carried out, or supported, strengthened and promoted by canonical laws. Thus, the apostolic constitution itself gives us the reason for laws. And then the beginning of religious life. We should always remember that. Up to the Edict of Milan, Christianity was so much persecuted for the first 3 centuries. In the 4th century, Christianity slowly and steadily became the official religion of the Roman Empire. All became Christians, but all were not faithful to the tenets of Christ's teaching. They were not faithful to Christ's values. So, some of the people wanted to choose bloodless martyrdom by running away to lonely places, forests, deserts, spending themselves in prayer and penance. Initially, they lived alone, but then they said, Christ gave us the commandment of charity. By your love for one another, the world will know that you are my disciples. That's how Christ said. So they remembered this, and then slowly, with so many other stalwarts like Pachomius and others, community life came part of religious life, part of consecrated life, right in the beginning. This is how the religious life started. And naturally, once you live in community, you need to have rules, regulations. Then, slowly, the link with the diocesan bishop, with the Roman pontiff, was emphasized in these forms of life. And the rules at a lower level were approved by the bishop, at a higher level, of course, by the Holy See, by the Holy Father. This is how laws came for the orderly development of religious life. Having said that, we had in the old code the canons on religious, de religiosis, but then the new code, the Latin code, as you know, has a different name altogether from what was there in the old code. The canons begin with 573 and end with canon 746. Now, as you know, the new code is divided into 7 books, and the second book is called the People of God. In the second book, we have 3 parts. The first part called Christ Faithful, the second part, the hierarchical constitution of the church, and the third part deal with the religious law. Though traditionally we call religious law, in common speech we call it religious law. It is called Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life. Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life. 2 major divisions, ICL and SAL. These are the main division of the whole section on part 3, or rather part 3 is divided in this way. Here, section 1 deals with Institutes of Consecrated Life. Initially, we have some common norms. If you take the canon law book, you know it. Common norms. That is Title 1. Title 2 consists of religious institutes. And Title 3 consists of secular institutes. In fact, it should have been not like this. It should consist of only 2 titles. One is religious institute, the other is secular institute. The common norms cannot be equated with the other 2 as if it is another section. So, though, because it's the section is, or rather the passage, these part is altogether new, they should simply say introductory canons on section 1, then title 1, religious institutes, title 2, secular institutes. Then you can go to section 2, which is called Society of Apostolic Life. There itself, it should have been better. I think in the next revision of the code, they will read it. I did not read this critical analysis anywhere. It is on my own. I am giving this. For me, Father Amal was telling me that I can talk to you on anything on religious, not merely restrict myself to the first few canons or like that. Maybe the most important things I want to share with you. For example, now we have CRI consisting of all kinds of congregations. Religious institutes are there, secular institutes are there, societies of apostolic life are there, or even some of the associations which are in the process of becoming religious institutes or secular institutes or societies of apostolic life are there. But we simply include all of them CRI. Now, what is the meaning of consecrated life? So when I go to give classes to the religious, so many who have been in so many years of perpetual profession don't know the correct answer. What is the meaning of consecrated life? Am I consecrated? I ask them. Yes, Bishop, you are consecrated. Yes, Father, you are consecrated. Then I ask them the question. There was some years ago, year of consecrated life. Was that year meant for me? Then they blink. So what is consecrated life? So consecration in general may refer to being set apart. We are all consecrated by baptism, that is general consecration. The priests are consecrated to be ministers of the Word of God and the sacraments. That is also a kind of consecration. But then you should understand that consecration in the strict juridical sense refers to the profession of the evangelical councils. So please understand, even I am shocked. Sometimes even some canonists don't know what is consecration in the strict juridical sense. It refers to the profession of the evangelical councils. Profession of the evangelical councils. That is consecration. So do the religious make their consecration? Yes, they profess the evangelical councils. Do the secular institute members make their consecration? Yes, they also profess the evangelical councils. So there are two groups, especially in the Latin Church, who are called consecrated persons. They are members of religious institutes, whether they are diocesan rite or pontifical rite, where they are contemplative orders or apostolic orders. So they are making their profession. One group, religious institute members. Second group, secular institute members. Then what about the third group? What about the third group? The third group, societies of apostolic life. Can they be called, strictly speaking, consecrated persons? Only in the broad sense they are also consecrated. Why? Because profession of the evangelical councils does not belong to the essential character of societies of apostolic life. What are essential to them? One is they are concentrating on apostolate and they are bound by community life. Community life and apostolate are more essential to them. What about they also make some kind of profession, they become members? Yes, they imitate the religious, as the Oriental Code calls them a common life in the manner of religious. With regard to community life, they imitate the religious. So we sometimes consider them as consecrated persons. That's why this long title, even after the new changes in the Roman Curia, they have not changed the name, dicastery for ICL and SAL. ICL because consecration is involved, which comprises of religious institutes and secular institutes. SAL, the societies of apostolic life. This is how we have to know it. Now, right at the beginning, I want to give the essentials of these three categories of special life. First of all, religious institute. Religious institute. What are the three essential elements of religious institutes? Canon 607 speaks about it. The first one, first essential element, is the profession of the three evangelical councils through public vows. This is specific to religious institutes. The profession of the three evangelical councils is also part of secular institutes, but they profess not through public vows. That is the main difference between religious institutes and secular institutes. They are common in the fact that they both profess the evangelical councils, but they are different in the fact while religious profess the evangelical councils through public vows, the secular institutes profess the evangelical councils through other sacred bonds or private vows. That is the main difference between religious institute and secular institute. Public vow. Canon 1191 will speak about what is a vow. A vow is a deliberate and free promise made to God concerning some good which is possible and better. Definition of vow. Many make their first profession and even final profession without knowing the definition of vow. It is sad. They will say it is a kind of relationship, it is bond with the Lord. All these okay. Your religious priest gave you some retreat, you know something, all right. Know the essence of the vow. That's what I always tell them. A deliberate and free promise made to God concerning some good which is possible and better. Knowingly and willingly you are promising to God. If you learn well canon law, I make a promise to God that I will go to Velankani. That is private vow. That is private vow. Public vow is, a vow is public. Canon 1192 says, a vow is public when it is accepted in the name of the church by the lawful superior. Some people think public vow is, it is publicly made. No need of a huge public. Somebody making promise, one lawful superior, two witnesses, that is public vow. Is it valid? Valid. Some people think bishop is needed for public vow or perpetual profession. The presence of the bishop is not at all essential. It adds solemnity, okay. You may be very happy, all right. You don't need a bishop, whether for temporary vow or perpetual vow. Please understand this. What is needed? No, what is vow? Vow is promise made to God. If that promise made to God is accepted in the name of the church by the lawful superior, then it is called public vow. What about solemn vow and simple vow? Presently, it does not have any juridical implications when it is recognized as solemn by the church. That's all. Okay. Leaving that aside. Know first the essential element of being a religious institute or being a religious profession of the evangelical councils through public vows. That takes me to the explanation of the three evangelical councils given in Canon 599, chastity 600, poverty 601, obedience. I don't have time to go into the detail of it, but still fast I explain to you the why of the evangelical council of chastity. Biblically, there are three reasons quoted in the canon. For the sake of the kingdom of heaven, as a sign of the world to come, to serve the Lord with an undivided heart, in greater fruitfulness. Three biblical reasons: Matthew 19, Mark 12, and then of course 1 Corinthians 7 chapter. Why you are not married? You have to say why you are choosing to be a chaste person. You have to say the three biblical reasons. How is it lived? In perfect and perpetual continence. Continence is purity. In this context, avoidance of all sexual acts and desires that are permitted only in the context of marriage between the spouses. On the one hand, you renounce marriage. That alone is not enough. You have to be pure. You have to be pure. See, chastity is very beautifully, in a nutshell, explained in Canon 599. It is similar to the promise of celibacy made by the diocesan priests, explained in Canon 277. There it also says you can be more close to God. You can be more available to ministry by a life of promise of celibacy. There it says like that. Okay, leaving that, what is the difference between consecrated chastity here and the promise of celibacy? Here it is an integral part of religious life. That is not integral to religious life. That is the difference. There can be married priests. There can't be married religious. That's all. Then Canon 600 speaks about poverty. Why of it? 2 Corinthians 8 chapter. Though he was rich, for our sake he became poor. That is the biblical passage that is cited. How is it concretely lived? Be poor in fact and spirit. Be stranger to earthly riches. Be industrious. Be dependent on the superiors for the use of goods or disposition of the goods. Be sober. All these things are explained. Be hardworking. The Evangelical Council of Poverty is explained. The Evangelical Council of Obedience, Philippians 2nd chapter, is cited there. He obeyed even up to death on the cross. In what does it consist? Submission of one's will to the will of the superiors. When the superiors command, in accordance with the constitutions, they take the place of God. Very beautifully explained. Who can obey? That's also in a nutshell said. If you have faith and love, then only you can obey. People who do not have faith, who do not love God, love the church, cannot obey. Very beautiful. Three canons. Canon law summarizes the whole of the evangelical councils. 599, 600, 601. Wonderful. I said the first identity of the religious is the profession of the evangelical councils through public vow. Often people ask about the apostolate. Nothing in the essential elements of religious concerning their apostolate. The witness of being first, then only the witness of doing. So many are worried about the witness of doing. We do that, we help the poor, we do social work. All these are nothing compared to the witness of being in religious life. You are a witness in your very person. All religious must understand. The second essential element, the fraternal life in common. The fraternal life in common. This is specific to the religious and also to the societies of apostolic life, but not to the secular institute. The community life or the fraternal life in common is expressed in Canon 602, very beautifully said. You become a special family in Christ, founded and rooted in charity. You help one another mutually. You are a sign of universal reconciliation in Christ. Universal reconciliation in Christ. How beautifully community life is explained in Canon 602. You can see that. And again, later on, among the obligations, how they are to live together, 665 speaks about it, especially paragraph 1. Religious pray together, eat together, support each other. This is explained. This is the second essential element. Vita communis, fraternal life in common. This is very, very important for the religious. And the third one, you would have understood already when I explained to you the origins of religious life. Fuga mundi, running away from the world, some kind of separation from the world. Do not simply ape the world, religious. You are in the world, you are not of the world. How do you concretely manifest your being different from the world? By a life of contemplation. Where you are active religious or contemplative religious, you are all contemplatives. By observing the enclosure, which is explained in Canon 667. So by observing the enclosure, there is a part of the house which is reserved for the members. By your religious habit, Canon 669 for example. So you should have a distinguished habit. So all this, they manifest in some way. You are away from the world. You are for the world, all right. You minister to the world, all right. But then you should not forget that you are away from the world. So the three essential elements of religious. Then we come to the secular institute. They also profess the evangelical counsels, but then they don't make public vows. Their promise to God is in a way less radical, we can say, less demanding, but then still they make the promise to God in accordance with their own constitutions. What is specific to them is their secularity. They are in the world living the consecrated life. Secular character, exercising sometimes worldly professions by the laity, like the laity. They are not negatively, they are not bound by the community life. For practical reasons, they live in a community to help one another. That's okay, but that is not essential to them. This is with regard to the secular institute. And the second category, or the third category actually, when we speak of consecrated life, it is second category, institutes of or societies of apostolic life. When we speak of first two from the consecrated life, then third, outside the consecrated life, societies of apostolic life, as I already explained, two things. Community life is essential to them, and then they are more focusing on their apostolate. This is how we look at the whole section concerning the religious. Then in the Code of Canon Law, you have the first title. Actually, I won't call it a title. Common norms for all institutes of consecrated life. I spoke of only two main institutes of consecrated life, but there are also others which are given in the code. For example, towards the end of those introductory canons, it speaks about 603, 604, 605 speak about some other institutes of consecrated life, like Order of Virgins, like hermits. So these are also institutes of consecrated life. And then the code also speaks about some more new institutes of consecrated life are also possible. Some of them are even looking at ashram life, or also another new institute of consecrated life. Like that, there can be also other institutes of consecrated life other than religious institutes and secular institutes. Among the common norms means mainly in our context, what is common to all the religious institutes, to all the secular institutes, we have it here. From Canon 573 onwards, the Canon Law students here who are doing MCL, it will be explained to them in detail by your professor who is teaching you on religious law. But some things which I want to tell you in the initial section are three important canons, or especially two important canons. One is Canon 578, what is called the patrimony. In ordinary language, we speak of the charism. So, what is the charism of each congregation? The canon says the charism consists of the intentions of the founder or founders, then lawful traditions, and then the nature, purpose, spirit, character of the congregation as recognized by the Holy See. This is the treasure of the congregation. Nobody can really interfere in the charism of the congregation. So the primary duty of all religious is to protect the charism of the congregation or patrimony. Canon 631 will speak about that the primary duty of the chapter is to protect the charism or patrimony of the congregation. Canon 586 also will say autonomy is given in order to protect the patrimony. So this is an important canon for all congregations, including even in a way for societies of apostolic life. Never allow others to interfere in the charism of the congregation. Then that takes me to the next canon, 586, which speaks about just autonomy of life, especially of internal governance. There are some common laws given by the Holy See, all right, but there are proper laws made by you, of course later on approved. The constitutions, Canon 587 speaks about the constitutions. So constitutions of the congregation. So they are made by you. This all religious must remember. Why? To protect whole and intact the patrimony. That's why it is not for the parish priest to interfere in your internal matters. This is the second canon, 586. I tell all diocesans and religious, remember Canon 578. Remember Canon 586. Religious have their own autonomy. Autonomy means autonomous. They make their laws. They can govern themselves. They are mature. Don't tell them what to do, what not to do. But this must be complemented by Canon 678 para 1. You are autonomous, all right. But in three areas, you are under the authority of the diocesan bishop. What are they? Care of souls. You want to start a parish. Wonderful religious, clerical religious you are. All right, but you need the bishop to invite you. You can't go about celebrating Mass everywhere. In your congregation, yes. care of souls. Secondly, public exercise of divine worship, liturgical matters. You have to surely abide by the regulations of the diocesan bishop. And thirdly, this is what is very, very difficult for many religious. Other works of apostolate, all works of apostolate come under the supervision, coordination, direction of the diocesan bishop. I would say even upgrading of the apostolate needs the consent of the diocesan bishop. You are invited for a nursery school. Suddenly you have a college without the knowledge of the bishop, not proper. Because the bishop is the coordinator of all apostolate. With regard to your external apostolate, Canon 683 says that the bishop has the right to visit, supervise, correct abuses. So this is an important matter which all religious must keep in mind. This is with regard to the essentials, with regard to the relationship between the diocesan bishop, priest on the one hand, and the religious on the other. Then there are so many other interesting aspects. One more thing before I give you some time for your questions, then we will take the next part, is that with regard to starting of a community, Canon 609, you need a prior written consent of the diocesan bishop. You cannot say, Bishop, there are no Christians, Catholics, or even believers, only atheists in this part of the world. No. Whatever part you go to, every part of the earth or moon or anything is under some bishop or other. So you need by all means, the consent of the bishop to start any community. Prior consent, written consent, consent of the diocesan bishop, not vicar general, auxiliary bishop or retired bishop. Canon 610 says, whenever they start the community, they should keep in mind three kinds of welfare. Welfare of the congregation, all right. Many keep in mind only this. The congregation needs some money also. Sometimes through apostolate, some congregations earn money. We don't find fault with them, but then they always do some good in the name of apostolate to so many people. I agree. Welfare of the congregation. But welfare of the church, you cannot forget. What contribution do you make to the local church? You can't be guests of the local church. You are in the church. Your gifts are for the church. You are of the church. Don't run a parallel church. In many parishes, dioceses, no proper collaboration between the religious and the diocese or the parish. The relationship is very, very miserable. The religious say, what is the meaning of PP? Not parish priest, but they say it is problematic person. APP, another problematic person, the religious say. The parish priest says sometimes because of lack of good relationship, every time the word begins with C, bishop, I get a headache. What are those C's? He enumerates the cook, the catechist, the choir, and above all the convent, he says. What is the contribution of the religious? Sometimes some parish priests complain, when I most need them, the convent is almost empty. What do you say, Father? No, they are on holidays, it seems, home holidays. They are on congregation program, it seems, they say. At the same time, I have also told so many priests, even recently, never abuse the consecrated women religious. You will go to hell, I have told them. They are partners in the mission. Give them due dignity. Encourage them. Respect them. I have also told them. Okay, welfare of the convent, of the local community, of the province, to the local church is very, very important when you start any community. Then the third thing, very important, many congregations neglect it. Welfare of the individual religious. Welfare of the individual religious. They have basic rights to live their occasion. Canon 670 speaks about the only right of the religious, only right of the to get from the congregation what is necessary. They have spiritual needs, intellectual needs, they have material needs. Some sisters are sent abroad sometimes to make revenue for the congregation, no ongoing formation for them. Very sad. Time should be found for their permanent formation, for their basic needs, everything. So, welfare of the individual needs of the sisters must be taken into account. I said for starting a congregation, 609, you need the consent. What about starting a community? You need the consent. But closing the community, 616, you don't need the consent. You need only consultation. Things have become so bad. You feel it is not good for the congregation, good for the sisters, good for the church. But prior consultation, Bishop, these are our difficulties, what do you say? Bishop may say, sisters, please continue. Still, you have a right to close the community. So that is with regard to starting and closing. Go to new places. I always say go where you are celebrated, not where you are tolerated. Like that, don't try to be stationaries, but missionaries. You should be ready to take up new mission, untrodden path, walk. The Lord will be very happy about it, I tell the religious. Okay, I go on talking. Now I give you time. You can ask me any questions. If it is in the chat box, the coordinator can read, I can answer. Now time for you for some time. First clarification on anything which you did not understand from my talk. Feel free. I always say to get a dinner from me, defeat me in table tennis, or provoke me to anger through your provocative questions. Are you there? You can be unmuted and you can ask questions. Yes.
Anyone?
Good evening, Father.
Yes, sister.
I am Sister Selvi. I would like to know when did this canon law started to exist? Approximately the year and the purpose behind that starting of this canon law, Father.
Okay, thank you, Sister Selvi. When did the law, if you ask when did it start, when did the law itself start to exist, then it started with the starting of community life, society. Before the Bible, laws came in. You know, the first 5 books are called laws. Okay, Pentateuch. Okay, is the book of laws. Okay. Then in the New Testament, there are laws. For religious, the laws started with the beginning of religious life. Whenever persons were alone, there were no laws. I already told you, even when you are alone, when you are called a hermit, you should there is a criterion to make you come under the title hermit. So even when you are alone, all the more so when you have community life. So religious law started with the starting of religious life. Then each congregation begin to have official recognition only through the approval of the law over the years. But then for the first time, common law for all the religious came only in 1917, the first code of canon law, 1917. It all started in 1904, Ardum Sane Munus. With that, Pope Pius X started the revision of the code, revision of the extant laws, and then put together in the form of books, common laws. Then we had the old code. Then in the light of the developments, Pope Pius the 23rd envisioned the revision of the law. He said the old law of 1917 is not correct for the modern times. So he wanted the new law. So he proposed three things. One is Synod of the Diocese of Rome. He then convoking of the Second Vatican Council, and then together with that, the revision of the Code of Canon Law. Then the members of the revision committee wanted to wait for Vatican II to get over. Under the 10 guiding principles, they revised the law, especially on the basis of Perfectia Caritatis, the Vatican document. The new law of the religious we have, which was promulgated in 1983 in part 3 of book 2, as I said, with the title ICL and SAL. Then after 1983, so many laws have been modified or changed according to the need of time. So that also we have to remember. Yes.
Thank
Anything,
you for
sister? Is it clear, sister?